Hey everybody, this is Carl back again talking about the E3 2021 game conference. And did I post it on as shoot, I don't know. Hopefully I posted it as 2021 and not 2020 because you never know. Anyway, yeah, I'm here to talk about the game conference. I did not want to do separate videos for each conference on, jot down some notes of everything I've witnessed. And just an hour ago, watched the, well, I had to play catch up on a couple of days because I had to work. So I had to catch certain things later on in the evening. But I jotted down my notes. Let you know what my thoughts are. I gotta be honest with you. Xbox and Nintendo probably are the only ones that actually did their thing this year. To be frank with you, but I want to definitely go down from like beginning to end, starting with like Ubisoft and end with Nintendo. Now, let's see here. Oh, here's the first thing I jotted down here. So just most of these things I had to look over because I did not want to forget what my thoughts on the immediate time as I seen them, because I don't want to fumble over my words to try to remember. One being is that the pre-rendered cinematics instead of actual gameplay, uh, uh, me and like many other people, if you bog down, this is part of the starting at the Ubisoft, if because that one definitely had like a fair bit of just pre-rendered stuff, and it's like, y'all know this. For years y'all been doing this, and I know for years you hear like people reviewing things and talking about it and complaining about the pre-rendered cinematics. And I know if you're not ready to show gameplay, show maybe a little bit of it to see what you have. We know, if we had the common sense to know that by this point it's not finished, at least we should, at least some people should acknowledge the fact that they're not finished. But if none of the stuff looks top notch to be shown anything, then show enough of what you do have that you do feel comfortable with, and to revealing to the public and saying like, here's where we are at so far. Just, but that's just my thoughts on that subject. But just like the CGI cinematic, the pre-render stuff is like, at least tone it down a bit on that stuff. There's only 3 games I'm actually like looking forward to that the entire weekend of it, which is like weird. Because past E3 stuff usually have like at least 5 stuff that I want to at least get, at least in the moment I'm thinking about getting. But this year's E3, I'm just like, that I'm definitely getting Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Definitely playing that for my Xbox Series S. Then there's Redfall game. It looks like this vampire game. It looks very interesting. There's one woman in particular that is like this character, this black woman with like this big, like you see, black women like kind of like big hair, look like almost in a fro, but upon further inspection they're all in like kinky curls. I love girls with hair like that. I don't know why I love it so much. I just love it. And then the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which is supposed to be coming out October 26th this year. That I'm definitely looking forward to. But as an issue with that was as far as like when you do certain super moves apparently, and it plays a lot of 80s music, and it's gonna be tough for people who are streaming this, as everybody should know at these conferences that certain songs that you popping into these games, and you know full well that people are going to be streaming this stuff on their various platforms. So maybe you shouldn't. I mean, I'm pretty sure they should be like I could be wrong, but I believe they might have an option in that game where you put on some kind of generic music, so that you switch to generic music, so that way you won't be copyright flagged, because you know YouTube and Twitch are cracking down hard on those kind of things, and a lot of people want to avoid all that. So it would be nice if game developers would put that in consideration if they decide to add in classic, you know, rock or pop or rap music into their songs. I mean, into their games, because it's very tough dealing with that stuff, because they'll just assume we're pirating. All right, during the Ubisoft covers, nothing really. Yeah, like Ubisoft was kind of boring. I think, if I gotta be honest with you, I think Ubisoft is probably my low-tiered game company. To be honest with you, it's like, I mean, like there's a few outliers that I did enjoy, like Watch Dogs 1 and 2. I actually did enjoy, but it's like, unlike most other game companies, it's like, you know, we have like a fair amount of stuff that I enjoyed compared to the stuff I didn't. Ubisoft is like the polar opposite, where it's like more stuff like I did not care for compared to the things that I like they did make. But like that new Far Cry game, I'm not getting it, but it did look very cool. Like one campaign when you get to play as the past like 3 Far Cry villains. And I did like Vaz. He was definitely a cool guy. Like I still remember, because like you talking about like great openings to a game. That one, you know, probably to this day for a lot of people stood out the most as far as great opening to a game, where he's going over to the main characters, like, you know, did I ever tell you definition of insanity? And like then the demo plays, he breaks out and try to escape, then he gets recaptured again. No, it's like he goes over definition of insanity. It's like when people doing, you know, something over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Then they lock him up, character breaks out, try to, you know, shoots all these people, try to escape, and then gets recaptured again. Voss comes up to him and tells him, "Do you know the definition of insanity?" And I was like, that's a cold ass opening. And just like that, and Batman Arkham City has a great opening with like Bruce Wayne, like, you know, strapped to a chair and having like, you know, Hugo Strange talking to them, like very up close, where you can see Bruce Wayne's face through the glasses. That was pretty cool. It was something else, but you get the picture. I mean, like, leave a comment below of what you think would be like the best opening to a video game that you've seen yourself. The Gearbox, yeah, Gearbox spent most of their covers talking about the Borderlands movie, which is fine. I'm actually excited to see the Borderlands movie. I love Borderlands, one of my favorite game franchise. But man, it has Kevin Hart as Roland. Not sure how short Roland is in the game, but I think it would probably have been better casting if they got Sam Jackson. The Sam Jackson seemed more like a proper fit for Roland or Tyrese, because they bald headed. But Cate Blanchett, who I love, is cast as Lilith. And Cate Blanchett is, you know, a fairly tall woman, and yeah, those two together, I mean, it'd be like very odd looking. because like in the game, they're those two are fairly the same height. But I don't know. I mean, Kevin Hart is a fine actor. He's just like would be my first pick as Roland. Yeah, but they spent most of the time talking about the movie instead of showing like any like gameplay for like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. But Xbox, I do give props to Xbox and Nintendo because they are the only ones that actually showing gameplay. I mean, they showed like a fair bit of like cinematic stuff, but they followed up with some gameplay. But then I found out about the Hades the game. Like I for the longest time, like Hades game was like on Steam, then it went to Switch, and for a while that's all there was. Like exclusive doesn't, I mean, I don't want to say exclusive doesn't mean exclusive anymore, but I'm just saying it's like these third-party games. I mean, people don't think they're going to be on the a particular platform that they actually own, and on a different platform you think that was just going to remain. But then it's like, oh, it's on the Switch, now you can play on your Xbox, which is cool, but it's like, for a lot of people, it's just like, like, okay, why you just made it for all platforms in the first place? Still no release date for Halo. And like I jot down my notes, but I still remember what I wanted to say is that people a lot talking about how like you probably won't see much this year because of the pandemic. People were scattered all over the place, and usually have to work from home, so they really couldn't be connect so far as like getting pulling their resources together to get these games out there. But and I do understand. I mean, it's not like it's not a legitimate excuse, but Halo Infinite has been in talks, well, not talks, but it was actually in the works already pre-pandemic. That's like first time it was announced. Was it like late 2018, early 2019, somewhere around that general area? So at least 1 or 2 years prior to 2020. So you mean to tell me you can't show actual gameplay from the campaign? They showed the multiplayer stuff a fair bit, but it's like, if you've been working on a particular game, this is my opinion, if you've been working on a particular game somewhere around like 2018 or 2019, and then well, of course 2020 is kind of like a mulligan, but 2021, you cannot use the pandemic as an excuse talking about like, oh, we don't have nothing. You've been working on this, you should have something. You obviously don't have everything, but you should have something to show. I mean, of course you can still push it back a release date because of the pandemic, people were scattered and they couldn't like take care of all the nuts and bolts of it yet. But you should have something to present as like a demo or something, and then like tell people know, okay, late 2021 or early 2022, this game will finally be out. But that would have been fine. There's the 2020 year was a saving grace for a lot of game companies. If they was expected to put out something that year but it couldn't, it gives you enough added time to like put in like the final touches on it. But it's just that certain games like Halo Infinite can't use the pandemic excuse. They should have something. Yeah, I put this note down because they went over Age of Empires. Not a game that I play, but it's just something that came to mind at that moment when I saw it. Is just that you know, fairly recently they started doing like Norse mythology and Viking age stuff, but for the longest time there's a lot of like European based like medieval times type of games, like or even like, well, Ghost of Tsushima is probably the outlier to that, but that's fairly new. uh like, where's games based on the other, any other civilization beyond medieval Europe or Viking age? I understand like people write what they know, but you can do research and bring in people, you know. I'm pretty sure there's great storytelling. That's why I made that back in February. I made a video about the kind of movies I expect to see as far as like black movies that has nothing to do with black people's trauma or slavery or anything like that, because black people had a life before the colonizers came to Africa and enslaved us. It's like we had like a whole centuries worth of history, and like our own god like pantheon, and agriculture and warriors and stuff like that. There's plenty of tales like you can do what you did with our medieval Europe, with as far as like, you know, knights, and we're doing with like Vikings. You can do with, as you know, hundreds of African tribes. You can do certain games like that with, you know. And like Native Americans, there's like several tribes you can do like a video game based on that. It's very easy. You know, you just put your mind to it, you can actually do so. Even if you're a developer of a Caucasian race, you can bring in people of that culture to your inner circle to ask them about this. Does this seem appropriate to you? What, like, the, you know, the battle tactics and strategies was implemented of this warrior, like all that stuff very easily. It's like hundreds of, I'm pretty sure Age of Empires has like other things like Mongols and stuff like that, but for the most part it's just white civilizations like Roman and Greek and medieval knights and Vikings, and here and there some like Asian cultures here and there, but it's a whole globe that didn't have like white Europeans on it, that, you know, had their own warrior culture and history and pantheon of gods. Like, you know, God of War had like Greek gods, and now they're doing like Norse gods. You can do like African gods or Native American folk tales, and, you know, there's a whole wide range of stuff you can like make a game of. New IP, just like Redfall is a new IP. You can make new IP that has nothing to do with medieval Europe. This is my thoughts on that subject. But Xbox did have an impressive presentation. I mean, like, beyond that, it's just like it was fun to watch, and it actually showed gameplay. Sony Square Enix, it started strong, showing like the Guardians game and stuff like that. And another bonus I give it is actually its own story, has nothing to do with the Marvel Avengers game. And unlike the Marvel Avengers game, it's like, you know, kind of like add on new stories to play through that. And it was, that game has tons of, not tons of, but there's a fair amount of issues to the point where you can't fully enjoy it. It's like, unlike Marvel's Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy game looked like they built, they didn't, like, it's obvious that they did not want to be associated with Marvel's Avengers, so they actually heard all those criticisms about like all those like characters that they, you know, that developer designed to make it look like, you know, the actors from the MCU stunt doubles being cast. The only one that was like was built from the ground up was Miss Marvel, because she wasn't like a thing in the MCU yet. So they were forced to actually make a brand new design. But the characters of the Guardians look great. But man, like it's written all over their faces the fact that they do not want to be associated with Marvel's Avengers, and it's unlike them. It's actually a full game. Unlike Marvel's Avengers, it's actually a full game. And they also brought up Marvel's Avengers later on about Black Panther, the DLC. I'm not even sure I'm even going to be returning to Marvel's Avengers anymore, because it's the same stuff you're doing. You still fighting AIM. You fighting the same kind of enemies and like and same levels. It's just it's pretty much bland, and it's like it's pitiful, and it's like I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. Is it when it comes to games like that and Cyberpunk, what was going on behind the scenes to lead to this? It's kind of like I want like a behind the scenes commentary or like some bio kind of thing for a game to hear why the game director and developers and all the people behind this stuff actually thought about, like, why it came up pear-shaped as it did. It just boggles the mind. Like, you had a good idea, but it's just like, man, you executed poorly. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, you had something and you did not know what to do with it. I mean, like, you wanted to do something with it, but it's just like it fell flat. Yeah, I'm not returning to the Marvel's Avengers game. I wanted to give it a chance because, like, maybe if I played through it myself, I would probably like it. It might have surprised me or something, but it's not terrible. I think the two terriblest games I ever played still remains to be Jump Force and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, as far as like the two worst games I ever played in my entire life. At least I went back, at least for Hawkeye, I went back to play Marvel's Avengers at the very least. At least I was able to stomach finishing it. And the same thing with Cyberpunk. At least I was able to stomach finishing it. I was rushing to finish Cyberpunk because, like, I was losing interest fast. But man, it's just like the way, like, the character designs, just like, well, it wasn't as bad as like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite as far as like their character designs. They look so effed up. But yeah, Square Enix didn't show much. Well, it didn't show any exclusive PS5 games this year. I was kind of hoping they would show some more, at least show something from God of War Ragnarok. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 already had their own little thing like a month ago, so I can't count them on this. They already showed us something at least. So I just kind of hope at least they would have given us some kind of release date at the very least. And God of War Ragnarok didn't show anything, nor told us what the release date would be. That game, what release date for that game would be. Maybe it's because, and it's also probably because why there's not any PS5 exclusive, is because there's barely anybody who has the PS5. I was, I already went over this with my little video about the distribution of the and rollout of the PS5 and Xbox Series game consoles. But my PS5s are sitting right here. I was one of the lucky few that actually was able to like grab the stock, even though it was like a pain in the ass financially. I already went over that. How much it like left a crater in my bank account trying to get this thing, thanks to that third-party distributor who did not charge the the digital version price tag like it's supposed to be, and ended up having being charged twice the amount. But you know, that's neither here nor there. I'm not rehashing that, but just check out my video about the Xbox and Sony rollout, and my video about my gripes about that. But maybe it's because it's barely anybody has their hands on these things, or at least the PS5 specifically, is because there was no no exclusive games to the console yet. Maybe by the end of the year, because Jeff Keighley did mention during the Wednesday coverage before the E3 weekend came about, he did mention this year the Game Awards show will continue as normal with crowds and audience and all that other stuff by the end of the year, because it's like late November, early December when they usually have those Game Awards. Speaking of which, it's supposed to be some kind of like E3 awards going on, at least right now. I'm not, I'll watch it later. I don't want to, talk about it here. Don't really care all that much, to cover it. I definitely, because I watch the Game Awards show every year, even though, because a lot of people used to complain about how announcers on stage from E3 or Game Award show usually be very cringy, and like all these like random like bands playing on the stage, and it's like it's a whole thing. But it's a weird thing, like now some people are actually missing because they want to see at least people in crowds. The last E3 that actually had a crowd is when Keanu Reeves came out. That was like that was the most mind-blowing E3, even though it was talking about Cyberpunk, just to see Keanu Reeves on stage and people losing their freaking minds. And it's like made one of my favorite memes, some guy, you've seen it, it's like some guy in the crowd is like, like Keanu Reeves is like, I gotta talk about this breathtaking game, and some guy in the crowd is like, no, you're breathtaking. And then like, everybody laughing. Keanu Reeves is like laughing along with them. He's like, no, you're breathtaking, you're all breathtaking. Like, still to this day warms my soul. It put a smile on my face. But yeah, I mean, are you talking about like the music? I'm being concerned about them because I want to get the Guardians of the Galaxy game, but I'm concerned about the music. So hopefully it's true about you being able to like change the like music settings where it plays generic music when he do some super move, because it's like you're just only controlling. Because that's another thing why it's so different from Marvel's Avengers. They actually make you solely focus on one character, and which is the lead, Star-Lord, and you command like just like you do with like Final Fantasy back in the day, where you can just order your teammates to do certain moves, so that way you just focus on Star-Lord. And they add in like some Mass Effect Telltale like options for how you discuss things with your team. So yeah, I think Guardians will be like one of the great games coming out. It's supposed to be coming out in October, so definitely gonna be streaming that. I haven't decided it's gonna be on PlayStation 5 or if I'm getting it for the Xbox Series S. I might be leaning towards the Xbox Series S because I don't have any specific games going towards it this year. And the only thing they announced when Tiny Tina's Wonderland is coming out, probably gonna be next year, either in the spring or maybe next fall. So yeah, I might get Guardians of the Galaxy game for the Xbox Series. Xbox Series S, along with like Gotham Knights and the Suicide Squad game, which is another thing why like they never brought up throughout this weekend. It's like they never brought up those other games that was announced, Like, I know they can't show anything properly because they were still working on it. Like I said before, they were still working on it when this whole pandemic started hitting everybody like a Mack truck. So they can claim that excuse, but they should say something what's going on with it. Just say something, but you don't have to show anything. Just let us know, hey, we're still working on it. We got some nice little thing where, you know, tweaking some things, but expect later this year some new news about Gotham Knights or Suicide Squad game. Capcom presentation didn't show anything interesting. They talked about Monster Hunter, which they showed a hell of a lot. There's some Phoenix Wright prequel about some ancestor of Phoenix. He's some lawyer, and then he's working with this character, Hemlock Sholmes. I was like, oh my god, that's so pathetic. And I love Phoenix Wright, man. It's like making a prequel instead of just another Phoenix Wright game, or a continuation of his story. I'm not getting it. And I love Phoenix Wright, but that is like, you know, that look not that, I wouldn't say it's boring, but it just doesn't look like it's appealing to me at all. Then it's just random esports stuff with like Street Fighter 5, and it's like Street Fighter 5 is not terrible. It's just it's okay. There's certain stuff that I do like about it, but it's just, I haven't gotten back to that game in like at least a year and a half. And it's like, man, it is certain, like some of the gaming mechanics, I'm pretty sure they probably at this point improved on something. And they announced all these, you know, they put out all these characters and all these costumes and stuff like that. It's like, man, I'm not enticed to go back to that game. Just start working on Street Fighter 6 at this point. And then all the people that you have right now in Street Fighter 5, bring them into Street Fighter 6 instead of like adding them down. Like the last character they brought out for Street Fighter 5 was Rose, and it's like she was one of the main rosters of Street Fighter 4. It's like, it's shocking that you have to add in her so late in a game. It's like the only people that should be arriving late in the game, well, not late, but just, you know, you got all these, I wouldn't call them new, there's only like a few new characters like Nakali for Street Fighter 5, and it's like all the stuff that we had, all the characters we like saw in Street Fighter, well, not all of them, I don't think that many people like El Forte or Akan as characters, but you know, aside from maybe those two, you know, most majority of the characters in Street Fighter 4 and then the characters in Street Fighter 5, they have to be automatic in there. I mean, it's, and then there was this like, what's that guy in Street Fighter 5 that doing a purple suit with the poisons and stuff, like with the lanky dude, I forgot his name. Fong, I think it's Fong or Fong. He's one of the new characters along with Nakali. So it's like, obviously, you know, they have to be in it because they're part of the Rockstar team. Matter of fact, when you're dealing with Street Fighter, whenever they're gonna work on Street Fighter 6, I kind of want them to take a cue from the Mortal Kombat series in the past couple of games. The fact that the story was, you know, very interesting, and how they, you know, tweak some things, improve upon themselves, like adding in like well, Mortal Kombat 10 had like different variations of fighting styles, and then 11 show like well, same thing, but you got these tweaks to like the, you know, like costume variations, like armor pieces, kind of like the same thing you saw in Injustice 2. They implemented that in Mortal Kombat 11, and I kind of wish like Street Fighter would do something like that. Like, do something interesting with the story campaign, and then also fix like the online mechanics. So I think that's one of the people's complaints, like the online portion of the game was like not piss poor, but could have been a whole lot better. But just by this point, I'm waiting for Street Fighter 6. Then like I'll jump on it. But Street Fighter 5 was, I mean, it's not like a huge step up from Street Fighter. Super Street Fighter 4 was awesome. I love Super Street Fighter 4, and it's like, oh man, 5 was not much of a step up. And then finally the Nintendo had a great coverage, but they was talking mostly about Zelda. Not much of a Zelda player. I like Zelda as a game, but I haven't played Zelda since I was a little kid on my Super Nintendo back in the day. I didn't even finish it because I didn't know how the game worked like that, in like all the puzzles and stuff like that. Like I didn't know, we didn't have like walkthroughs or YouTube at that time, back in the 90s, to back in early to mid 90s, for me to like, you know, look up and see how you get past certain things. So I just like got annoyed and like didn't go back to Zelda. My little brother's playing Zelda. He only recently got Breath of the Wild for his Switch, so he's been playing on that. And then they also, I thought this was pretty cool, they announced Kazuya from Tekken and added him as a Smash character, and I was like, oh, that's freaking cool. So you got like Ryu and Tekken. I think, I mean, not to disparage Fortnite, but it's just that I think Smash, you know, is doing an awesome job like incorporating all these different characters from various different gaming companies to be in this game, and it makes sense. I mean, like Fortnite adding in like certain characters like Superman and Batman into a Fortnite shooter game. It's just, and Ryu from Street Fighter is in there too, and it's like certain odd choices to bring in to like a shooter game of characters that don't use guns. I mean, Joker and Harley Quinn is one thing because they have been known to shoot people, and Deathstroke, and maybe Thanos. I mean, Thanos is like was added in, and John Wick. I mean, nobody's like batting an eye, but it's just like, you know, Fortnite is just like whoring themselves out to all these different IPs, and it's like, is this the only spot where you can be allowed to have like Marvel and DC in the same jurisdiction? That's wild to me. It's like, what makes Fortnite so damn special, where after so many years since the 90s, where we could not have Marvel and DC in the same comic, at least, and with better writers this time than it was back in the day. But Fortnite, well, it's not like a story, but Fortnite has managed to allow them to be in the same room as each other, and none of the companies are bickering amongst each other. This is wild to me. Anyway, I mean, the E3 conference, like I said before, I think Nintendo and Xbox did very, very well, mostly because they actually show some gameplay. When you're doing these, you know, coverages and conferences, it will behoove you to actually show some gameplay in your video game that you're trying to show off. Now, there's certain exceptions, of course, like Redfall is definitely an exception because it's just brand new. It's new IP. They, you know, they probably don't have much to show, but they do have like a cinematic trailer to show. Okay, obviously that is like okay, but like someone like Halo Infinite, who had at least a couple of years since the announcement of this game and being in development and stuff, you could not show a minute or two of gameplay and just more cinematic stuff, and it's like, but I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you know, a lot of people were struggling dealing with the whole pandemic, and like I said, it was scattered, and they, you know, pulling what they could together for this coverage, but only half of y'all can make that excuse. Like a lot of y'all had plenty of time, and just like I was kind of hoping to hear something about like Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 and Final Fantasy 16. They talking about like these older Final Fantasy games like 1 through 6 that you can play on some kind of one, you know, like something that you have to download. I can't remember how it was, but it's like, what are you talking about? Like older stuff when you're not talking about the ones that we actually want to hear. I mean, it's fine for people who loves a Final Fantasy 1 through 6, but you could have used that opportunity to bring up at least how Final Fantasy 7 Remake is coming along, even if you can't show anything. Because the game came out in early 2019, 7 Remake, and they only last year, I think it was Game Award show last year when they talked about Final Fantasy 16. At least I'm getting that right. So obviously can't show nothing from either one of those games, but fill us in on how things are coming along at least. But yeah, those are my thoughts about the E3 game conference. It was okay. You know, it's just, you know, there's only 2 companies that it actually did well. It's like they understood. I mean, like there's been times in other years that they did not understand, but this year Nintendo and Xbox understood. We wanted like a whole laundry list of gameplays locked and loaded to ready to show these people, and maybe by Game Award show this year, or is PAX still going on this year? I'm not sure, but maybe later on this year they will take a page or some notes from people who are talking about the E3 conference and say, okay, people complain we didn't show anything in E3. That's, you know, showing at least. I remember times when people hear those kind of complaints later on that year, they start rolling out like 5 damn minutes of gameplay. Like here's what we have, and like, ain't this blowing your socks off kind of stuff. Like, yes, that's what we wanted to see. You should have just done that from the beginning. You know what we came here to see. We went through like an entire. You weren't the only ones that went through an entire year of some shit. You know, we want to sit down, have a nice little moment of talking about games, seeing what's new, what we're looking forward to, and you should have something geared up. And you know, for the most part, it's not. The coverage wasn't totally disappointing, but it was lackluster. But anyway, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Follow me on my Patreon, www.patreon.com/talkativecarl. If you have certain ideas for reviews that you want me to check out, I will definitely look it over and make you a priority and make a video for that. Just check out the tier list, and you know, you can pick the lowest tier. Is perfectly fine with me. But leave a comment below on this on YouTube. I'll have this up in a minute. What you think of the E3 game conference? What games are you looking forward to? Which games suck to you, in your opinion? Which games are you met on? Or is like, you know, what notes would you give to these developers throughout the weekend coverage of E3? Pretty soon I'll be hopping on to more Fire Emblem, 3 Houses, playing a little bit of that. Don't know what else I'll be doing after that. I might squeeze in some time for maybe some Overwatch. I don't know. I definitely feeling some Overwatch time coming on for at least a little while. But anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Oh, and join me Friday around like somewhere between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time, as I will do a new comic book review live discussing Moon Knight, a Moon Knight comic issue this Friday evening. So look forward to that. And don't know what else I might be discussing. Well, definitely gonna be discussing tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll be discussing the episode 2 of the Loki series. So yeah, at least a couple of things. Not much live discussions this week. I'm probably gonna, unless there's certain requests from you guys, might dial it down a bit so that way I can squeeze in some time for Fire Emblem. So that way, once that's wrapped up, I'll hop into Horizon Zero Dawn, the first game, and at some point, probably some point end of next month, maybe I'll be starting Final Fantasy X as a walkthrough. So yeah, those are the stuff that you guys should be looking forward to. Also, some big Yu-Gi-Oh videos by the end of the month as well. See you guys, and I hope you all will be doing all right, be safe, and yeah, see you this week.